is Sarah, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Fast, Season 3, Jacob.
Not even just welcome back to a new episode, Sarah. Welcome back to a new season.
A new season, and we're going to get into it a little bit later in the pod, but we're also talking about new seasons of life, new season of the pod.
We took a good break, and it's time to come back.
Exactly. Better than ever. So the nice thing about when you produce your own show is you can decide when seasons end and when they start again. So when you're feeling burnt out and you need a little bit of a break, you can come back, take a rest, and then we're back. But one thing that will always stay the same is this segment. Jacob, what are you drinking or eating this week?
It's nice to have a familiar segment like this, Sarah. And the other nice thing to have, it's warm weather.
It is warm
and
weather.
Listen, one thing that'll never change with me, I've talked about it multiple times on the podcast. I'm a snack guy. I'm a big snack guy.
Specifically sweets.
Well, hold on to your hat because it is chips season, Sarah. I got a question for you. You got a favorite chip?
Just a ruffled chip with dip is my favorite.
A plain ruffled chip?
With dip is the caveat.
Okay, well, what kind of dip?
Like the herb one from Philadelphia,
like
cream
urban
cheese
garlic
tips.
kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or like an onion dip?
My kind of chip. I go straight to the sour cream and onion.
Okay, interesting.
I'll do that in Ruffles. I'll do that in the kettle cooked ones.
Oh, I haven't had kettle cooked.
I'll do that in also Doritos.
Doritos are classic. Doritos, like when I would go to Subway in high school, I would always get a bag of Doritos.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Actually, this
Doritos
is a sidebar. This maybe tips my sweet tooth because when I would go to Subway, my order would be if I was doing a combo, I'd go cookies.
Yeah, you go cookies. I'd always go chips.
Sometimes I would even say, let's jack it up a little bit and get an extra
cookie.
Yeah.
Actually, my favorite chip of all time might actually be Sun Chips.
Okay, which kind though?
The original kind.
Like
I'm guessing you like
orange
the
bag?
French onion
Yeah,
one,
I like the French
green
onion ones. Although there are also my favorite thing to do when I go to the United States of America. Mm-hmm. There's a garden salsa sun chip.
Oh yeah, that one's good.
They have it some places here. So maybe even Subway. They have like the small bags
but
a lot of the time in Canada.
Ones.
Never have the big ones. That is, I'm not kidding. Whenever I go to New York, my first thing I do, get in a cab from LaGuardia. You go down to your hotel, your Airbnb, wherever you're staying. Immediately go to the bodega and pick up a bag of garden salsa.
Okay, well, I'm going to States this weekend, so maybe I'll pick up a bag when I go on my big grocery run.
Bring a couple bags back for close friends. I don't know. Who knows?
Podcast hosts, managers.
Well, I was going to say, it's chip season. It's picnic season out there. It's a great time to pull up to a park with a bag of chips and some friends. You know what? Watching a movie at home because it's a rainy day in the summertime.
That's like the one big perk of watching a movie at home is that you can eat chips because they don't sell chips at the movie theater because else everyone would just be like chomping down the entire time.
The other thing too, a bag of chips. If you're not, you don't have time to go to the liquor store and get a bottle of wine or something, and you're going over to a friend's house, a host. Mm-hmm. No one's getting mad at the person who shows up with a bag of chips in their hand.
I will say, my friends and I realized we were like adults and past the university age when you show up to people's houses and it's finally not just 20 bags of chips. Like no one would coordinate what we were bringing and we would all bring a bag of chips and like essentially you're just having different flavors of chips.
I like that barometer actually, that line of
that's how you can tell you've become an
adult
adult because now we actually, we do a Google form or we leave a comment going, I'm going to bring a charcuterie board or like a veggie like tray or whatever instead of except for now no one ever brings the chips and we always talk about how we miss
catch me showing up to the function with a bag of chips and if this shows maturity level I guess I'll be like taking off my Velcro shoes at your front door while I put them out. But Sarah, what about you? What are you drinking or eating this week?
So as you said, it's warmer weather, which is patio season, summertime, and I feel like every year there is a drink that I associate with summer.
Okay.
I feel like last year was really the summer of the espresso martini. Like I feel like espresso
cocktails, like
cocktails
alcoholic
specifically.
Drinks? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like maybe the year before it was all about like canned, or 2 years before that, all about canned RTDs because like picnics and stuff because it was COVID times. Aperol Spritz was big. And I feel like there's always like, just as there's a song of summer, I feel like there's kind of like a cocktail of summer.
Ooh.
So I'm on the hunt for mine. So It's almost like a call out. I want to try out different ones. The Saint Germain spritz is one that's like really popping off like on the internet right now, and people are like really into it.
Dabbled into this a little bit in Europe last year,
Yeah,
actually.
it's good.
It blew my mind to even consider that there were other kinds of
Of
spritzes,
spritz, I
which
know.
sounds really stupid
know.
and basic, but you know what? Why not try
Or
it?
like, I don't know, like, is it a rosé summer? Is
Do
it
you have
a...
any front runners? Like, are you early on in the stages
I'm a
of
big,
check?
I love a spritz. So I think like any type of spritz that's not Aperol, because I just want to like mix it up, would be kind of interesting. Not Campari though, because that was too bitter.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm really open to it. I'm also spending a lot of my summer in Paris. So I'm wondering,
I have something for you. It's a
In
cocktail. It's a cocktail, and it's not technically a spritz. Have you ever tried a French 75?
yeah, I love a French 75.
Okay,
So
let
that
me
might
let me
be my
throw
drink this
that
summer.
in
Ooh.
as potential.
I like that. So I'm assuming in Paris, after my long days of work and when I go and grab a cocktail at night, that's where my summer drink will develop. But let me know if you have early front runners on what you think the drink of this summer is going to be.
Ooh, that's a good one, Sarah. What about what you're reading or watching this week?
So we did take a little break, and there was no world where I couldn't talk about my 5-star summer romance reads that I have read over the past month. All of my favorite authors released books in the past 30 days, and it was
Good
like
season.
Christmas every single week. It was incredible. And all of them lived up to the hype, because I get like nervous when my favorite authors release a book. So you're like, like maybe like the last 2 I weren't like crazy about, or like whatever it was. So we have 5-star reads from Emily Henry with Funny Story. I loved it. It was so different than her other books, but like rose the rankings of one of my favorites by her. This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, Canadian. Shout out.
Yeah.
It's all about Prince Edward Island. If you've ever been to PEI, you can just like picture the setting, and it was absolutely incredible. I devoured it. It is so good. And I wasn't crazy about her second book, but this is her third one, and I think I like it even better than the first.
Someone else was talking to me about this book, actually, like singing its praises, which
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
It's so
okay.
good. It's so good.
And Carly and I were in the same issue of Cottage Life, so we have to have her on the podcast.
I know, we have to. You were in the same issue of Cottage.
Yeah.
I love how that's your connection, because it's a humble brag that you were in Cottage Life while you were away.
Okay, continue,
And then the
sorry.
third one was Abby Jimenez, Just for the Summer, which I feel like Abby's finally getting her flowers. Like, I've been an Abby Jimenez fan for a few years now, but people are like just finally getting on the train. So if you haven't read her books, go back and read all of them, because they're all like connected in the same universe. But Just for the Summer was also fantastic, and I think I have a new favorite book boyfriend from that book. So 3 incredible 5-star reads. So if you're looking for summer reads, because like the weather's really nice today, so I'm very much in like
Yeah.
a summertime vibe, you should pack those for any summer vacations that you have this year.
Do you have any other ones that you're looking forward to? You've kind of like
No,
burned
this
through
is
some of
this
these.
is the issue. In the spring, because ahead of summer reading,
Yeah.
is when all the good drops happen, and now I have nothing to look forward to in my life, because I finished the 3 most anticipated books of the year. So I'm just gonna reread them, I guess.
Fine.
It's
also,
tough.
Is it tough to be so on top of it too? Because I feel like you're always the one giving the recommendations,
Exactly.
and you just know what's happening and have read them as soon as they
And then
come
when
out.
I see people post on Instagram, or when people tag me being like, "Oh my god, like reading this now, we're reading it next," I get so jealous that you have to read it for the first time.
Would you ever save a book to just like have it for a certain?
I really wanted to save This Summer Will Be Different for when I'm like on the East Coast or in PEI, but I'm not going until September, and there was no
too
world
long.
that I could. Maybe I'll reread it in September. I'll reread it on the island. But what about you? What are you watching? I'm guessing watching.
Okay, yeah, I'm watching.
Unless you've
it.
taken
This
up like
is,
this reading habit over the past month.
kind of a different vibe. Have you seen Baby Reindeer?
No, but I've heard about it, and I don't know if I would like it.
It is.
Freaky.
It is.
Is it going to make me really freaked out about how much I put on the internet? Probably.
No.
Stalker vibes, is it not?
Yes, but it goes so much deeper than that, and
Okay.
it is a very uneasy watch. The entire series, but it is a very interesting series.
How
I
many
like
episodes?
the 7, and I like the overlap between the Richard Gadd, who is the writer, and he actually stars in it as well as some kind of hyperbolized version of himself, because as things have come out afterward, it's like, is this 100% based on the truth? Is this,
So people don't know if it's based on a true story or not?
Well, it is based on a true story of there is someone who was in his life who was stalking him in this way. She denies a lot of things. However, there are elements that, the lines got a little bit blurred sometimes. Not in a bad way. I think that it was a totally fine way, and there's nothing against him for how he approached it. Because originally it was, he turned it into it was his real life, turned it into a play, and then the play got turned into this series.
Oh, okay.
Very interesting, very tough watch. Total trigger warnings for sexual assault, stalking, emotional manipulation. Like, it is, if those are hot topics for you, do not go anywhere near this show. But also a very like eye-opening show in a lot of ways too. And there have been, I think, reports of like instances of sexual assault against men, cases being reported at a higher rate after this show has come out, which I think is an overall positive.
Good. Okay.
Yeah,
good.
and I think that it does do a very interesting and good job at depicting what abuse and sexual assault can look like sometimes, while remaining entertaining and a really engaging show to watch.
Well, I hate being out of the loop, so I'll probably end up watching it just because I hear everyone talking about it at work, and then I feel out of the loop, and I don't like that feeling.
Yeah,
Good
if the sun is shining outside, though, go and do that instead.
What are you listening to this week?
This is a big one for anyone who hasn't listened to Jacob's Songs of the Summer 2024.
Have you been actively updating it?
I have. I've been actively updating it. Got
okay.
some
I gotta
bangers
check it
on
out.
there. You got to go check out the playlist. It's on Spotify. Just search that up and you'll find it.
Unless Apple Music wants to pay us for it, then we will move it to Apple Music.
Perhaps. Big one. Post Malone. Everyone knows that country's having a moment. We've talked about this at length on the podcast itself. I'm a big Post Malone fan. I think that he's a good artist. I enjoy his music.
He's also everywhere right now.
He's everywhere.
Who is his PR?
He's on Taylor's album.
Yeah.
Who else did he just do a collab with? Someone else. Beyonce. Obviously, he's on Beyonce's album.
Yeah.
And then he has his own country album coming out, I think July 29th, which I've been excited for a long time. I was not happy to learn that the first single off of Post Malone's forthcoming country album is a collaboration with Morgan Wallen.
I know, but they're boys.
Listen, Posty, Austin, you got to get rid of this guy.
Is Austin his name?
Yeah.
Okay, I had no idea.
You got to get rid of him. Listen, Morgan Wallen, of course, is someone who has done a lot for the country pop crossover, crossover into being more popular music. He's got a lot of hit albums, but he is a toxic man.
Agreed.
When he finds out that his ex-fiance is in a loving relationship, now this is drawing a few lines, but it's likely what happened, tosses a chair off that almost hits a police officer in Nashville off of a 5-story building, has been caught on camera saying racial slurs.
Is literally banned from going to the University of Alabama for
Is that
situations
true?
with underage girls. They call the bar there the Morgan Wallen bar because he used to make it with underage girls at that bar.
God, listen, I understand that people can be good artists. I don't really buy into the let's separate the art from the artist argument. I think that if there's any separation there, Post Malone should separate Morgan Wallen from his fucking music.
Yeah, it was an interesting choice because so Morgan Wallen was a headliner at Stagecoach this year.
Yeah.
And he brought out Post Malone. So that was my first inkling, oh, he's definitely going to be on the new album. And I get it. He's still somehow arguably the biggest country music star.
And from
but
a
it's
business perspective, for sure.
I don't, but is it from a business perspective? If Post Malone's whole thing is you're crossing over this different genre, I don't know.
And as someone who's already appearing on Taylor Swift's albums, Beyonce's albums, and having hit after hit of his own, do you need the cosign of
don't.
one of the most toxic people in the music industry?
I don't know. I this is a great take by you. I agree completely, wholeheartedly.
And I don't think it's controversial. I think that people, will get upset that they say oh, well, I like Morgan's music. Who cares?
Yeah, I have a few friends that are because I used to listen to Morgan Wallen years ago, and they were the ones that really opened my eyes because my one friend is just she's always been so hard pressed on do not listen to him, but she's a huge country music fan. She refuses, and she kind of inspired me not to, and I haven't been listening to him for years because of just it's fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It's he just keeps doing stupid shit. So
and
it's
it's not I haven't listened to his music because I did, and I was embarrassed when he was gonna be a top artist on my Spotify
I was too.
Wrapped one
I was
year,
too.
And then all this stuff came out, and I was like, oh fuck, I gotta do some listening to be able to bury this. Anyway, that's my take for this week.
Yeah.
What are you listening to?
Well, speaking of Post Malone, I've only been listening for the last, when did it come out, a month ago? I've only been listening to the Tortured Poets Department. I realize I've never made a video giving my take on it, but also like, I don't think there needs to be really any more discourse on like TikTok of like people's takes on the album.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake people make with the Taylor Swift album, and I have learned because I have been waking up or early in the morning or waiting for midnight releases for a decade now. I never judge it off the first weekend and the first listen, because she switches genres or switches like styles so often that like it's always jarring when you hear a different style, or if it's like a little bit different than what you're used to, or if it's like so lyrics heavy or whatever, that it takes me like a few days to fully like absorb it, and then before I know it, I'm like singing along to all the songs. And it's quickly rose up the ranks as one of my favorite albums of hers. A lyrics girly, so like big, and also it gives me my two favorite things, which is like Reputation Jack Antonoff vibes mixed with folklore Aaron Dessner vibes. So it was the perfect album for me personally. She wrote it for me. My name is in the album. If anyone listens, Sarah's and Hannah's in their Sunday best. She's kind of making fun of me, but that's okay. I like to think of it as like a personal little inside joke, and I'm included. Even though my name is just the most basic name on the planet. But if you are curious about my current favorite songs, because I know that's what your next follow-up was going to be.
I was going to ask.
Guilty as Sin is my getaway car now. I can already tell. It is, I saw someone post that it's like the same track number and it starts with a G. They're like, welcome back, getaway car. Like it just like, it is so good. I listen to it every single day. It's reached the rotation with Getaway Car that I listen to every day. Down Bad.
Down Bad is
so
great
good.
Song. Yeah, I'm playing Down Bad.
My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys. That one's also incredible. In the rotation a lot right now. I'm curious, what was your gut reaction then on the first listen? My first listen, okay, because note that it released in 2 waves.
Yeah, right.
So gut reaction, the first one was, this is a good album, but she's got to stop working with Jack Antonoff because it sounds too much like Midnights.
Too much.
That was my first reaction. But then now that I've listened to it more, it doesn't sound like Midnights. It like you can tell it's like a cousin of it. You can tell it's the same producer, but it to me feels more like a Reputation. And then the Aaron Dessner stuff dropped, and it just like made me so happy. The lyrics are just like fucking crazy, dude. Like they're as someone that's such a lyrics girl that I like sit there and always read the lyrics as I'm listening to the song for the first time. It feels like her most raw and real lyrics she's ever done.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's almost her being like, I'm putting it all out there that I'm never going to talk about again. See you later.
What do you think about the take that it is kind of an album for the fans and people? I know
that's why I love it.
Immediately they were like, there's no radio hit on this.
And that's why I don't care. It literally, that's what makes it feel like Reputation to me, is because Reputation was such an underappreciated album at its time. Mm-hmm. And like, I remember my friend Jess and I blasting that album in 2017, riding around in her car during our practicum, and like our like practicum teammates were like, "Why are you listening to Taylor Swift? This album sucks." Blah blah. Like, look what she made me do. All these songs are like, it's horrible, and like no one appreciated it at the time. No one appreciated the Reputation tour at the time, and I feel like the Torture Poets department is going to be the same thing, where it's like people will then appreciate it later. I'm already seeing people like on TikTok going off being like, "I'm so sorry. Like I said, it wasn't good. Like I've listened to it more." It's like the exact same thing as Reputation.
It is also kind of nice to have an artist who's able to kind of release an album like that. We're in a world that has been so dominated by like, you need these popular singles.
No, it's an album. It's an album. Exactly.
Yeah.
Tells a lot of stories. I actually like that there's no real like radio hits, and it's just like vibey music. I love music that I can just like work to, and that's why I've been listening to this album on repeat, because I can get a lot of work done to it, because it's just like swayy, vibey, not like Cruel Summer screaming in my car.
Okay, and then any more predictions like for when we might get more music? Are you hoping for a new era?
I'm not hoping for anything. I think this poor girl, people just like ask for more things. It's like, I can do it with a broken heart. And she goes, and when the crowd was chanting more, it's like alluding to the fact that people are just constantly asking for more things from her. Like the second this dropped, people are like, okay, now time for Reputation, Taylor's version, which y'all didn't care about Reputation when it came out in 2017, so you can wait. Getaway Car and Delicate have been my number 1 and 2 song for 5 years in a row.
Get your plays up.
Get your plays up before that happens. I do think it's going to come out this year. I just don't think anytime soon. I think we're going to have a little moment with the Torture Poets
with
department.
a double album, you kind of have the...
Like 32 songs. When that happened, I was like, how am I going to remember all these? I already know all the lyrics.
That's the tough part. But it does give her another larger repertoire to pull from for like the extra tracks during the tour. Sarah, somewhere you went?
I went back to the East Coast, to Nova Scotia, to open up the Cottage, and move my parents out there.
We get some updates.
Yeah, there's been like people, my friends, like my friend the other day was like, Yeah, you just kind of like mentioned it in a throwaway comment in a vlog, like, oh, by the way, like my parents are moving to the East Coast. Then I never talked about it again.
Yeah.
I think it's because I thought I'd like, I don't know, discuss it more, but there wasn't, I'm like, I'm not going to sit down and spill my parents' lives unless it's on a podcast. We didn't have the podcast. So yeah, my mom like retired a few months ago from where she was working, and she just wants to do like some freelance stuff, whatever. And their plan has always been to move out east. So my dad was like, "Don't know what? I'll start looking for jobs out there." And he got a job in a week. Like, so shout out Dean. And so that weekend that we were supposed to just go open the cottage, we had this like weekend planned, like these flights forever, ended up being moving my parents and the dogs out there.
Right.
So they're gonna go live in the cottage. They will officially be Nova Scotia residents full time. It's very weird. Like when I left my dad out there and I flew back, I'm just used to leaving them for like the cottage vibe. And I was like, oh wait, you like live here now.
I was gonna say, how does that feel? Because they moved from hometown
to closer to the city, and had them
Toronto.
close for like 2 years, and then now they're moving. Yeah, like a 20 whatever hour drive away. It's like good for them. Like it's like what they've always wanted, and they're so happy out there. My dad's already like loving his life. He's like never been happier at a job. Yeah. And so it's very good for them. I'm gonna probably see them more than I did when they were in hometown, because I go to the cottage all the time.
Yeah.
And so they bought a house that's close to the cottage, but not the cottage, so it'll be good. 'Cause then
that'll be nice. I'll spend like some good
yeah,
family time
exactly.
out there
And they'll have a washer dryer there, so we don't have a washer dryer at the cottage. So then I can wash my clothes at
Oh,
their house
there you
and
go.
stay down there, which is a perk. But yeah, so I went back to Nova Scotia, and it was lovely as always. I won't get to spend as much time out there this summer as I would like to, but my friends and I are planning another massive trip out there.
Nice.
I think some of us might road trip it out there this year, which
Nice.
should be interesting. So it'll be good. What about you?
Well, Sarah, you gave me a gift card
I did.
a few months ago to.
I believe it was a Christmas present.
It was the Spa Thermea, which is.
I
out
didn't
in
know that's how it was
Whitby.
pronounced. I thought it was pronounced therm.
You know what's so funny is that I watched YouTube videos before this to make sure I was right. It was good though. Again, thank you for this. But it was actually a really great experience.
Okay, good, because I bought you the gift card and I was like, I'm seeing mixed reviews of this place, and I was a little bit nervous that I was sending you to a bad spa in Whitby.
No, it was so fun. Haley and I went, and they have. It's kind of cool because there's the spa vibe where there's like saunas, massage, cold pools, hot pools, the whole thing. But then they also have 2 full restaurants that you can kind of like patio it up and vibe out on the little deck. And we went when it was still cold outside, so we were enjoying ourselves in the nice crisp air. It was relaxing, and I got my second massage ever.
You only had 2 massages in your entire life?
I had one when I went to Mexico on the beach. And does a beach massage in Mexico?
No.
It was legit. It was like, it wasn't like a beach person.
You work for yourself. I was like, what are you talking? You've always worked for yourself. You don't
I
have
don't
benefits.
have benefits. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I know.
That makes more sense. As a runner, though, you should be getting massages more regularly.
Yeah, but I was also freaked out. And this is it's funny because it was a funny story. I was just freaked out of like, I'd fall asleep or something. And I fell asleep during this one.
So? That's like one of the most...
This is the thing. It was like, why should I feel embarrassed about that? I
it means you're relaxed.
A point of perfect relaxation. Yeah. But it was funny. This was the annoying thing, is that the massage therapist, she was like, she woke me up in the middle of it. She's like, you're asleep. And I was like, damn, why don't you leave me that way?
Yeah, wait, that's wild. When I've fallen asleep, they've never woken me up.
Yeah, and it wasn't even the end of it. It was like halfway through. But also the massage like tables, I don't know, whatever you call them, the setup at Thermea, they had like cozy blankets. We're not talking just like a sheet over top of you. It was like
a blanket?
tucked in with a wool blanket. That. Yeah, it was very nice. So thank you again.
No problem.
And I would recommend to go and check it out.
I should check it out.
Yeah.
And finally, for something you did, we're gonna do something we did, because we both did it, and we both did the same thing, and we both rode to town. So why don't you kick us off with something we did, Jacob?
Sarah, we did the Sporting Life 10K.
Hells yeah, we did.
When we're recording this was literally yesterday.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was yesterday. Yesterday feels like 2 days in my brain, but yes, it was.
I just freaked out for a second. I was like, was it? Yeah, it was. You PR'd. Congrats.
I did. Yay!
By quite a bit too. What was your time?
It was 53 minutes and 57 seconds.
And that beat your previous record by like
8 minutes.
That's huge.
Or 10, 8, 9. Maybe even 10 minutes to
that's
be
almost
completely honest.
That's almost a minute faster.
No,
per
yeah.
kilometer.
No, it was. I was looking at my Strava, my Nike Run Club, and the only time I had ran 10Ks was as a way to train for the half, and I was running them at like a 6:20 pace.
Right.
So I did run literally a minute faster, because my average pace was 5:16
And
kilometer.
with training, like, would you ever have like maybe a stoplight here and there too?
No,
in
because I run
training?
along the waterfront,
Oh,
so I
you do?
never have a
Okay.
stop line. But it was like no, but that was like just the actual running pace. But that
Yeah,
was like
yeah.
I hadn't ran 10K since I ran 21, basically.
That is what you should be very proud of yourself.
Thank
That is a huge.
I know. I
accomplishment.
will say this always happens though. Is when I finished, I was like, wow, I felt so good. I felt like I crushed it. Like I knew I had beaten my like 55 was the goal. But then I was like, imagine if I ran more than once a week, what I could have done. If I had like trained, like actually trained for it like I had planned to. Like I only run at Run Club essentially right now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but you also got your second best time ever.
I think I got my second best time ever. I had a stretch goal, like my main goal was, everyone really wants to PR whenever they race.
Yeah.
So I was, my playlist was named 39:39, which would have given me like a 7-second PR.
What's like average kilometer, like average minute per kilometer for 39:39? Or for even for 42, whatever.
So the PR, my actual PR would be 3:58 per kilometer. That's what I did 2 years ago at the same race. And then I didn't come close this time. I was 3 minutes off because my legs kind of blew up and I was coming off a little bit of a cold. So my lungs weren't at 100% and just didn't feel it.
Yeah, but I liked your Instagram post talking about.
Yeah, well, I was going to talk about that too because like you said, we've been doing Talking Fast, Running Faster, which is the run club that we started. Keep an eye out for that if anyone's interested in running. Very accessible paces and just want to have a good community. And we often have PRs in that as well.
We had I remember we were just like, oh, we're going to easy 5K the week of the race, and it was a small group. There's only like 12 of us.
Yeah.
And we had two girls that had never ran under a 6-minute kilometer in a 5K before. They'd never done an under 30-minute.
We've also had people come out, and this is what I love about it, is that we've also had people come out who there was one girl who came out the other day who said, oh, this is my first run ever outside.
Yeah, she'd only ever ran on a treadmill.
And she did an amazing job.
Yeah, and everyone, it's like very good. It's like really cool to also watch the progress of people that have been with us from like the first week. Like I got a message from a girl saying that like she used the Run Club to train for the 10K and she hit a PR and she had never even ran like 10 kilometers before. Yeah. And it's like just stuff like that makes it like worth it.
And
like,
that's really what I like about running right now is the community aspect of it.
Me too.
And cheering on your friends who are hitting, their own milestones and or just planting another brick in the foundation of hopefully doing that in the future.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm trying to do myself because like I talked about on this, I missed the New York City Marathon last year because I tore a ligament in my ankle, rehabbed that for a while, and then I really wasn't passionate about running for
which is
like
crazy
months.
Because you're like a
well,
runner.
It was actually like a very strange thing in my mind because a lot of my identity and a lot of what people like certain friendships that I have are based around running, and what a lot of people know about me is because of is kind of through the running community, and what I post on social media a lot of the time is about running too. But yeah, I just wasn't out there. I didn't really have a passion for getting out there running. So I've started to rediscover that again. I love that. The race was like I had fun at the race.
You did? Okay, good.
Yeah, and like it was an outside. I always knew it was an outside shot that I was going to get a PR. But for the first 3.5 kilometers, I was sending it down Yonge Street and just burnt out essentially.
But was it better like knowing that by 4K you weren't going to hit it, that you were like, you couldn't just focus on enjoying it more?
It was. And then you're like, okay, what are my secondary? I had 3 goals. So my secondary goal was then I was like, can I push to be like top 500? And that wasn't going to be something that I could do. So then I was like, okay, let's try to do sub 43. So I think it was just 42:54, which I was like, okay, I got it.
Insane. That's an insane time.
But it's all relative.
I know, it is all relative.
And we're all running our own races, which is the other thing I like. It's like you can't get bogged down if someone's faster than you. Like Dan on our Talking Fast, Running Faster
literally
team.
came 6th overall. Fifth.
I know.
In the entire thing. Or Diane, who came like 28th overall woman. I was like, what?
Both Dan and Diane were fantastic. I ran into them in the chute after the race, and I had never actually met Dan in person before, so I said hi, and I asked them both how their races went. And they're like, oh yeah, they're pretty good. And I was like, oh yeah, me too. Like it kind of blew up a little bit and wasn't what I wanted. And then I went on the tracking website and I was like, oh, we have a near podium finish.
Literally.
And like,
and then top 30 women,
Yeah.
like
Both of them are such
16,000
good
people,
runners.
the best. And they're also like such good people. It makes us
Yes,
better.
yes.
So if you are a runner, you're interested in running, you should definitely check out our run club. You can find out all the information on Talking Fast Show's Instagram. And on the other side of this, we're going to touch on kind of like what you were just talking about. We're going to talk about change. So with a new season, we were kind of alluding to new seasons of life and change. And I think what's really interesting, we walked in the podcast studio and like how much can change in like a very short amount of time. Actually, Clay, who this beautiful studio that we're in is his, we like were in, obviously when we walked in the studio, ran into him, he was like, so much has changed in the past couple months. And I find that like, you don't realize until you're a little bit older how much can change in just a matter of like a month to 2 months since we've started recording or since anything has happened. So what would you say is like the biggest change that's happened for you, even in like the 2 months since we've been recording?
I don't know. I feel like I'm maybe entering a little bit more of an emotional era of myself.
I mean, same. So I like that. Let's spill. We have microphones to talk about the emotions.
It's not like over any specific issue in general, but I feel like
Emotions don't have to be over an issue.
Yeah, you're right. But I think post-COVID, a lot of it was like, let's get back into doing things.
Yeah.
Let's get back into working a lot. I work often, a lot, which is great.
Always.
I love what I do as well. But I find that sometimes my emotional wellness can kind of suffer a little bit. And not to the point where I'm like near depressed or anything like that currently right now. But I'm finding them in a position where I feel like I need to turn on that knob a little bit higher to just like
explore it a little bit more.
Instead of going out all the time, maybe we do a little bit more meditation. Instead, not that I'm going out all the time.
I mean, you're literally planning like raves throughout the summer, but yes.
Well, yeah, that's a good thing. Well, actually, that's a great point. This is the one thing that kind of centered all of this internal discussion, was that I have a lot on the go.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot on the go for like 3 years almost, to the point where, I have this side project of doing Just Friends, which is like throwing the house music parties. I've been building a cottage for 2.5 years.
You have this podcast that I forced you to do, and then the run
club. We're
club.
doing the run club on top of everyday work. I feel like I'm a little bit of an everyday Sarah Jenkins right now, in addition to like my chair hobby of like refinishing and selling furniture, which is one thing. And you get to a point where just like, I have too many things on the go.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm cutting out one here or one there, but it's being a little bit more intentional of let's just pause a couple at the moment.
And we just paused the podcast.
Well, no, this is a good point, because I feel like we did it. We paused the podcast.
I think we both needed it
a little bit unintentionally. Like it's not like something we had planned for like 4 or 5 months, or sorry, maybe a couple months.
I hate to break it to everyone listening to this. We don't plan anything more than about 2 weeks
in
advance.
It was 2 weeks maybe, and we're like, let's just hit a pause and reset. And I think that echoed a lot of other things in my life. So maybe it was a good time to take a step back, refocus, and not have, another commitment.
Yeah. I definitely was like feeling the same way. So I think the biggest change that's happened for me in the past couple months, at least since we like stopped records, because like we record ahead of time, so it's been about a month and a half, almost 2 months since we recorded, is the mental well-being. I've almost like gone the opposite way of you. I feel like, I mean, you would know, I've been in that state for about, I don't know, 8 months, like a long time, and it's been like a lot. And this past month is like the best I've felt in almost a year, which has been like, you don't really notice it. Like when you've been like feeling really shitty for a long time and you can't really pinpoint what it is, or like if it's not one thing, it's just like kind of like your being. I guess that's like what mental health is, right? There's not necessarily one thing triggering it. And then you don't really realize until now, like when I was like reflecting on today's episode, what we were going to be talking about, I was like, oh, like I feel so significantly better than even when we came to record the last episode we recorded before we took the break.
Yeah.
And it's like I couldn't tell you what changed or what happened or what little thing, but over the past like 2 months, I just like feel lighter. I feel more like myself. I feel more productive again, and just all of these things that are starting to make myself feel more like me. And I don't know when it happened. It just happened at some point over the past couple months, but I do think taking a break is probably part of a reason why I was able to. And I didn't just take a break off like the podcast. Like we took a break off like a lot of things. We pushed some things back, or projects or opportunities. We started only really taking things that I could handle, and like and really just like allowing myself to like jumping into instead of diving back into the pool, it was like slowly getting back in. And I think that's the only way that I've been able to survive like what was clearly what I was like, am I getting burnt out? I was like so fucking already burnt out. Like it was obvious. I looked like death in my eyes. I was watching like the Self-Care Sunday episode the other day, and I couldn't pinpoint exactly what changed, but over the past couple months, the thing that has changed is I finally like feel, instead of like this all the time, I'm like my shoulders tight. I feel like a little bit more like
has
myself.
That been a gradual
for sure
noticing
for sure and noticing it as well. Yeah, definitely a gradual.
Or do you actively
do check-ins or anything? I mean, like I have therapy once a week, and that's kind of like I paid to literally have someone check in with me, and my check-in myself with that is like I can tell based off like what I'm talking about or what I'm like thinking I want to talk about each week. And
something like that, having an external person, whether it's actually a one-on-one with therapy. For example, after the Sporting Life 10K, I didn't hit my main goal. I wasn't crushed about this, but I did a 10-minute acceptance meditation afterward. There was a guided meditation. Sometimes your mind, like most of the time, your mind is very stupid, and how you think your thoughts are talking to you is not all of the story. To sort of have that little extra check-in to reframe things and be like, oh yeah, actually that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that's just what changed. And talking about like change and everything, I've been in therapy for almost 2 full years straight now, and like one thing I've noticed over the past like couple months is I've had some sort of shift or change where like almost all the things that I've been talking about for 2 years are kind of coming to fruition right now, where I understand what they're rooted in, which is kind of like the point of therapy. You're like kind of like trying to figure out, like it's like pulling on a string and trying to figure out what that string is attached to, like what memory or what thing or whatever. And I've had a couple like aha moments over the past couple months. And I think that directly correlates with me starting to feel more like myself, because I feel like maybe it's like 'cause I have like answers for things that I wanted. Not that there always is one, but I have more clarity. But the weekly check-ins of therapy is kind of how I guess I check in with myself to be able to do that. But yeah, I've been feeling a lot better, and that's been like the best change possible, because I didn't want another sad girl summer. Because not that I'm sad all the time, but it was just like when you're just feel like the first half of the year was just like literally like the meme of like a cloud over your head the entire time. It's like so refreshing when it's like that's gone.
I also like that we can step back into the podcast and do it again intentionally and on our own terms, 100%. Where it's like there are no real deadlines, and I think that translates into a lot of probably almost everything in your life, where not just your life, I mean everyone's life, where you can move the goalposts, and someone else, you might be disappointing someone else in the process, but that disappointment is on them. And you got to take care of yourself first.
For sure. And I think like it was, I don't know, like with the podcast as an example, like the very first, like when we started, I was like, we're going to go 52 weeks straight, like and not stop. And then we needed to take a break. And this time I didn't really have a goal for how long we were going to go for, but we just kind of could feel it when we naturally needed to take a break. This is the beauty of being your own bosses from that sense, is that like we didn't have some like sponsorship goal. We didn't have anything like that. Like nobody else other than
while you're listening to this, it's probably been several weeks from
for
this
sure.
exact moment.
100%.
Because we're not releasing this next week,
no,
which feels good too.
Which also feels good, because for clarity, while I was also, let's call it what it was, depressed, I was also turning around episodes within 24 hours to try and get them out on Wednesdays. And like simple things like that. Like you guys who listen to this or watch this every week are not going to like leave us like because we take a month and a half off for mental health. You know what I mean? Like, and I think about all the shows that I watch that take time off, and I don't know.
The other thing is like, if someone did want to leave and not listen again, it's like, so be it.
Yeah. Or like maybe people went back and I saw one girl tag us in something being like, I went back and listened to the first few episodes because I had never heard them before or something. So
yeah,
it's, well, just grateful for the people that do continue to like tune in every single week and like support us when we do want to take breaks and stuff like that. Cause you can't, it's not lost to me that like we do have such a good community of people that listen and watch and interact with it. So that we feel comfortable enough to be like, it's not worth it if we're not at our best.
Speaking of other seasons of change, because as this is probably coming out, we're also leading into the Olympics. We can touch on it briefly.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because this has been a goal for you for a long time. How does it feel on this side of it, pre going to the Olympics?
When I'm like a month and a half out.
You're a month and a half out, and it's something that you've always wanted to do. And what's on the other side of the Olympics, career-wise and whatnot, probably looks a little bit different than maybe what you're doing on the day-to-day right now. How does that feel?
I'm not going to lie to you. I have a little bit of blinders on right now, and I'm like not trying to think too far ahead, because actually I did a Q&A on Instagram, and someone said, now that you've like reached the goal of getting to go to an Olympics, I mean, as long as I make it there, we only still have a month and a half till I got to get there on the airplane. But once I land in Paris, then yes, I will have reached the goal of getting to go to an Olympic Games on the ground. And she asked, now that you've achieved that goal, what's your next career goal? And I'm like sitting on an airplane, just doing a silly, goofy like Q&A, being like, la la la, like people are going to ask me what my favorite show is or something. And she asked that, and I sat there, was like, oh my God, what is my next goal? And like, I think, I don't know, maybe it's like PRs or like any of these, it's like goals shift and evolve as we do as people, but it is kind of daunting when you're coming up to something. And look, I can't even fathom if you're actually like an Olympic athlete and you're coming up to competing at the Olympics, the one thing you've worked towards forever. Like, it's daunting when you're coming up to like the one thing you've wanted. Like, I found my notebook from when I was 17. I'm 27, so it was from 10 years ago. And like in it, I had put my goals list of in 10 years, I will. And I had like written all these things. And in it, I wrote work at the Olympics. So like, that's something even 17-year-old me knew she wanted. So it almost doesn't feel real. Yeah. Like, I keep just saying I'm going to Paris because like, I think it almost like it minimizes it for myself to not like freak out at how big of a deal it's been for me. Yeah. I do think I'll have a moment when I'm like working the opening ceremony and I'm like seeing the athletes, or I don't know when it's going to hit me. I will have a moment that will hit me that will like, I don't know, like I think I'll probably like start crying or something will happen.
I'm waiting for that myself. The alignment here maybe is the Cottage for me.
When it feels real.
Yeah, and it's also been like, you know, I had the Cottage growing up on the same lake. Yeah. My parents got divorced 20 years ago, and then it'll almost be 20 years to the day that we probably move in, and it's coming up on probably only about 30 days now before we get in there. And it's weird to be making all these tiny little decisions to get to that goal. But yeah, I understand the blinders thing, because you're working so hard to accomplish the thing you've always wanted, without maybe looking at stepping back a little bit and being like, even being this close, it's not going to not happen. Being this close is like such an interesting and like,
it's crazy,
significant
but
part
it also
of
goes
life.
to like, when you think about like day to day, like when we talk about change, like this is whole like theme of this episode, day to day, your life doesn't change that much. But then like when you look back from like, even for us, 2 months from recording or 2 months from now, I'll be like done the Olympics, and I will have been to the Olympics, and I will have witnessed some people's like biggest achievements, heartbreaks, world records, this, that. I will have achieved this like thing that I've wanted to work towards for so long. And that's weird that's like, it's going to be over. And then it's like, okay, so that's a goal finished, a goal that I worked for a decade. My entire career in sports media has been leading me to this. And then it's like, okay, now what? So I'm trying not to think too far ahead.
This jumps topics slightly, but we're still talking about the same stuff. I wanted to ask your thoughts on manifestation, because there are a lot of manifestation people
I think
out
it has
there.
to.
Get your crystals.
I think manifestation like fully ties into this, because like I was telling you, when I found that notebook, I like my jaw was on the floor, and like in writing stuff down, I think is really important. And
Yeah.
like half the shit on that list from me being 17 came true. The only ones that didn't were like, get a dog, get married. And these are all things in my full control that I could have done if I wanted to, and I just didn't want to. My goals and expectations just changed. So yeah, I'm not like, I should phrase, I'm not like a crystals girly. I'm not like somebody that's super into horoscopes or any of that stuff, but I've always believed in manifestation, mostly due to the fact that a lot of pretty delusional stuff has happened in my lifetime just because I've decided it would happen. And so I believe, whether I realized it at the time or not, that was manifestation.
I don't know if this is a hot take. But I have a bone to pick with manifestation. Because I think a lot of people conflate or they think this manifestation and a wish are the same thing.
No, they're different.
That if you just sit there and think so hard
about like winning the lottery.
I'm going to win the lottery. I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to get this relationship. That's manifestation. No. If you go out and purchase $13,000 worth of crystals and put them around your bedside and put 16 grapes or whatever it is underneath your table at midnight on New Year's Eve, you're going to get the love of your life.
Mm-hmm. The grapes, eating the grapes under the table.
For novelty's sake, I like superstition. I would call that superstition though. And if you're making a wish, that's great. It's fun to say, but like a manifestation is something I think that happens on a daily basis that like you're putting to action. And I think a lot of people disregard how much they can actually impact their own lives with just like tiny little decisions that lead you on the path to your actual end goal.
Well, manifestation to me, so my mom, since I was young, has always just said you create your own opportunities in this world, and that's just manifestation.
Yeah.
The idea that you're creating your own opportunities. Like if manifestation was really just wishing, like, don't you think people that like live in horrible situations would not just go, oh, I wish this is going to be different, and then it magically is different?
That's my bone to pick with manifestation, because it's almost rude. It's like it's
sometimes. Just, 100%. It's the same idea as like.
And then if you get what you want because you're a privileged person and it just works
like,
out.
It's okay. So that's
me.
My issue I've always had with like when athletes, when their first thing is they thank God for like getting them to that point. And I was like, God wanted you to win the race more than everybody else that was in that race. No, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Though. Like, and so
listen, I don't have anything, not to shit on religion, because I think that what you're saying too is that like, even if you believe in God and think that God is a part of your journey there, it's not an us versus them thing. No. I get it. You don't. I know what you're saying.
It's like creating your own destiny, for lack of a better term. It's like creating like your own small decisions every day are what manifest into your desires.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think writing stuff down, I look at manifestation as just like holding myself accountable. So writing stuff down. I make a goals list every single year. You can call a manifestation list the same thing. Make a goals list every single year, and like I put goals that I know I'm going to achieve, attainable ones, a mix of ones that like are pretty far-fetched. So then I just like the next year put those next goals on the next one. And sometimes the far-fetched ones happen because you just like, if it's on a list and it's in your you're manifesting. You
have to think about it actively.
Exactly.
Too.
You have to. That's why like my phone background is it's like a mood board. And
it's so funny. Like, say you want to produce a film, right? Later in life, you want to produce a film, and you go and you're in a room with some movers and shakers, and you have your manifestation list. My bone to pick is like, if you're sitting in the room and be like, that person's going to come over to me and talk to me and give me this. It's like, no, your manifestation is like, I deserve this. I'm going to go out and talk to that person.
Yeah, exactly. Or the manifestation is when an opportunity does arise, because it is something that you're thinking about. You see it more as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. So like, maybe like if I'm, as an example, invited to like TIFF through like influencer events, but I want to be making a movie, I see that as, oh, well, I'm meant to be here because I manifested being here, and I'm going to go talk to that person because I'm in the same room as them. Even though I'm not necessarily in the same room for the main purpose of what my end goal is, I can make it that way because I'll take advantage of that opportunity.
You're in that room. You're living that life. Yeah.
I think we're aligned on
no one come for us on the definition of manifestation either, because you can get hung up on just the semantics of what it actually says in the dictionary. But I mean, if you actually want to get something done,
you got to be a little bit of a mover and shaker. No, I agree though on like just like liking a TikTok that says like
claim this energy,
claiming
repost, but even as a
it's just about, to me, I see manifestation as just like constantly having your goals and the things you want top of mind, and that will help you guide decision making in your day-to-day life.
Well, that's
what will help you get you to your
exactly
goal.
And that's what I was trying to lead to here with manifestation, is that like when it comes to change, if you want change or you've been thrust into change, it's like you are also in charge of the direction of where you go from there. Do you know what I mean?
I completely agree. And obviously there's things that happen that are out of your control.
For sure.
But
Your reactions though.
Exactly. Your reactions are the one
No
thing
matter
you
how
can control.
shitty something happens.
You can always control your reaction.
And I understand that is very hard. And
a lot of the time, it is extremely hard. Very, very, very hard. But
we're specifically talking to you, Morgan Wallen. Don't throw that
don't
chair
throw that
off
chair.
the fifth story.
Because then maybe you'd have 2 more listeners on Spotify. But now you don't have any. No, actually going off of that and going off of change, the other thing I want to touch on is, so one thing my therapist and I talked to you guys about how like I've had a lot of like epiphanies, like poof, whatever. And one of mine is, I had a friend point out a couple of weeks ago, she's like new to the friend group. She's dating one of my like very, very good friends who I've known for a very long time. And she said, it is crazy to me that you guys are like a solid university friend group that have been friends for a decade. Like she goes, most people like it must be because you stayed in the city, whatever. And then we ended up talking a little bit about how like, but we're such different people than we were at 18 when we met versus now, but somehow we've all managed to stay in each other's lives. And obviously there's like common interests. Like I'm not saying I've done like a 360 on like who I am, but I am a very different person. If you met 18-year-old me, I mean, there's a reason there's people I'm not friends with when I was 18 to who I am now. But my core group have been the same people that have surrounded me for a decade. And it got me thinking about it. And I talked to my therapist about how the older you get, the thing that's weird, and they talk about it in relationships, like with love, and how you have to fall in love with that person over and over again. But you have to do the same with your friendships in your life too. Because sometimes I get frustrated with like the feeling that my newer friends in my life know me better than the friendships I've had the longest. But it's not true. It's just the fact that they met you as a different version of yourself. And unless you are actively reminding them that you are not that same version, they're going to treat you like the version that they met at 18. And I held accountable for doing this too. Like you see them as the version when you met them, but people are constantly evolving. So I'm just like curious about your thoughts on like.
I just noted down at the same time, because I've had this thought recently about other friendships, because we talk about this a lot. Friendships come and go sometimes, for sure, especially long-term friendships.
Tiers of friendship. You go if you ever want to hear us talk about tiered friendships and you're like newer to the pod, go back to the Tori Webster episode. We did an entire episode about the hierarchy of friendship and how there's different tiers and what you expect from those friends.
But like I think the strongest friendships, romantic relationships, what have you, are the ones that are you can depend on those people to like raise you up and support you as you become like the next version
as you evolve
of yourself.
100%.
There's nothing worse than being friends with someone who you think you have to act a certain way or do certain activities with them to earn their respect or keep their friendship around. It's like I want to be hanging out with people who both see me for who I am right now, see the potential in me, and when I say like an offhand comment of like, oh, I'm interested in maybe doing that or like taking this direction, or, you know, maybe I don't want to talk to that person again, support it. And they're like, yes, go forward with that.
That's how longevity in friendships works, and relationships too. It's like allowing the people to evolve and still loving that version of the evolve and not holding them to who they were when you met. And I even feel this way with like an audience on social media. I think it's the same thing. I've now had a following on social media for 4 full years now. March 2020 is kind of when it started to happen. I get that little TikTok reminder when it's like on this day, and it's like a jump scare of what my eyebrows used to look like and what I used to look like and how I spoke, but even how I spoke, to my voice sounding different, to everything. Me 4 years ago to me now, like to me is almost unrecognizable just in like the daily changes that happen. But there are people that have been watching with me and evolving with me for those 4 years that don't hold me to who I was 4 years ago. But then there are some people, and it happens occasionally, where someone will say, well, you said example, if I mentioned that like I would love to buy a condo or a house one day. Well, you said 4 years ago that you don't want to buy. And I was like, well, yes, because I was a swimming in debt, newly like graduated university student who had no money and never thought that would even be a possibility for me. And I grow and evolve and change in the things that you want, your desires change and whatever. So I feel the same way. It's almost like a complicated relationship. So it was actually looking at my relationship with social media and like the audience that, and the community that I've developed, and that relationship, how they've evolved with me, that made me take a look at my friendships to realize that, because if you're like a new follower, you've only ever listened to the podcast, you only know this version of me. You don't know 2020, or Jacob's version of me in his head is the one that just watches Superstore all day long and like, or hangs out at home a lot. You only know the version that's like out and about and busy and doing things.
Yeah.
And so I think it's interesting because like not only just in your like with my online life, people have had to evolve, but then also in like personal life as well. And I just think it's so interesting because day to day you don't notice the changes, but then like when you look back on 6 months, a year, or in this case 4 years, and you realize, oh shoot, like I'm a different person.
Do you have any friendships that like they've gone off and done wildly different things that you would have expected? Whether like someone's picking up a weird hobby or moving to a city that you never thought they would
My
leave.
friend Amanda, literally, like I'm so proud of her because she is from Gore's Landing, a town of like, God, there's like maybe 1,000 people in Gore's Landing. It's cottage country. And she literally was invited to tea with the king last week.
Whoa.
Like not even like, oh, like a big event that the king was at. No. The king requested she be there because of her research she's doing at the University of Glasgow. Like,
no way.
And at one point she was in a not great relationship with a guy that wanted her to stay, and she wasn't, and she went to school close by, and I was like, she's like, there's bigger things for her, but I was really worried she was always going to stay in the small bubble. And it happens a lot when you're from a small town, like people stay in the bubble of that small town.
Yeah.
And she literally dumped him, did a complete 180, went off, moved to Glasgow, living her best life, met like the love of her life. They're like having tea with Charles, and like it's like it's crazy, because if you told me that was going to happen 5 years ago, I'd be like, my Amanda, like, are you serious? And it's like, it's not that I never thought she had it in her. I'm just like, it's so cool to see when they actually like do it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. But then also there is the other side of it where sometimes you do have friendships of like people that maybe never left the small town, or they never
on Facebook just because of
I know, or they never maybe evolved into the person that you saw the potential that they had to be. And that's okay, because people's desires change and what they want changes. And just because it's not the same thing that you want doesn't mean that it's not valid.
And I think, like you said, especially with the online audience, it's like when you're engaging with someone online or with just your actual close-knit group of friends, please just raise people up as opposed to knock them back down, because it's so easy to critique someone for being something decision you think is outside of the box that they live inside your head.
Well, it's like in Little Women, one of my favorite movies of all time. If you've watched the Greta Gerwig version, Jo March doesn't want her sister to get married because she's like, no, don't get married. Like, we can go off and live in the city, whatever. And Emma Watson's character, who I'm blanking on her name now, she says, just because your dreams are different than mine doesn't mean like mine aren't valid, because she wanted to like just get married and have a family and whatever, but her sister wanted to be like a feminist and go write books and whatever. And I've always thought about that. It's like, for me, like, I love living in a city, and I love like being super career driven and do all these big things with whatever ambition, but it doesn't mean my dreams are any like more valid than the people that's decided to stay in my hometown and are having not even just their first kid, they're on their second kid, and they just like, they have their house and they have their like day-to-day job, and like that's what they want to do, and they have their family, and that doesn't make anyone's dreams less valid.
Do you ever find it tough though? I think the other side of this then is like, yeah, you can celebrate and raise people up as much as I just tell everyone to, but the other side of it too is like that celebration of being proud of your friends and whatnot for going outside of the box you expect them to be in. The other side of that is sometimes there's like a lot of grief that happens there as well, because sometimes you lose friendships because of that, and someone moves away and you wish that they maybe stuck around so that you can hang out with them more.
I fear that.
And that's the tough thing I think about being an adult, and an emotionally mature adult sometimes, is like that those two, being proud of someone and grieving, that can happen at the same time.
That's also though, like, because going off of that, I really try to think of the difference. I think there is a difference between evolving and changing. Like, I think evolving is just like, I don't know how to describe the word without using the word. I feel like evolving, there's still the same person that you love, but it's just like entering a different era or into a different part of their life. Whereas
Right.
change, I think, is like fundamental things changing about a person, whether it's like values or goals or whatever. So like what I try to think is if like my friends are choosing to like leave the city as an example, because like you're gonna have to drag my corpse out of this place. I think that's more like evolving, like they're evolving into the next part of their life, and I have to remind myself they're not changing as a person just because they now live in Guelph or something, even though that's tough for me. And it's hard because then you're right, you're grieving that like era of your life being over yourself, even though you're excited for them or entering the different.
It's also, you have to grieve that sometimes for yourself when you're posed with a decision. Sometimes this happens on a weekly basis or daily basis, that like you can go any number of directions, and sometimes you have like 3 good options in front of you, and you got to say goodbye to a few of them and just choose the one that you think is the right way to go.
Look, and I just made a joke saying that you have to drag my corpse to this city. Maybe something happens tomorrow and I decide I hate Toronto and I wake up and I do want to move out, and that's okay.
And I'll support you, Sarah, as long as there isn't like some like weird hand signal you're doing that's signaling to me that you're in danger
I need help
of some kind. Yeah.
I know I have made the mistake of telling everyone that if I am willingly leaving the city, it's a sign for help. So. But it's the whole point is that you can like, I don't know, you can make that choice and change, evolve. I just think we should hold. It's hard not to hold people to the person that they were when we met them. And I think people should like look around at their friends and look at their life a little bit and think if you are somebody that is doing that, because I've caught myself doing it.
Oh, I do it all the time,
and it's hard not to.
And I do the flip, or what would you call that? I have a double standard. I have a double standard about that too, because I'm like, why don't people support me in my decision to go and do something different? And then when they are just like, I'm going to do something, I was like, no, you're not.
I know.
I need you to remain consistent so my attachment trauma can latch onto you.
No, 100%. It's just about like, nail on the head. And I'm really bad for it too. Like I was like crying to my therapist about how I'm like, my friends, like, why do my new friends understand me more than my like friends I've had forever? She's like, well, have you like vocalized that you need different things from them now? And I go, no.
They should just understand what I need.
They should just understand. They should be able to read my mind.
And if they don't, they probably hate me, and they're going to leave me anyway.
Exactly. We have nothing in common anymore. Oh my God, I know. It's hilarious the things that your brain tells you when you say it out loud.
Well, that's what I mean about the acceptance meditation. It's like sometimes you need that external little flip
to tell you that you're being an idiot.
And you know what? Most of the time you probably are.
But you were not an idiot for listening to this podcast. There are going to be some changes, some evolving.
Yes.
Evolving versus changes.
Think about the first episode that we had. We've already changed quite a bit in terms of segments.
Yeah, we switched sides of the table from the very first episode.
Yeah, true.
We left that recording. I said, never again can I sit on that side. No,
that's the one that won't change.
I will always be on the left-hand side. No, there will be some evolving. So one thing that we did a little bit of a change before I burnt out and had a mental breakdown. I brought in the Self-Care Sunday series. That's going to be coming and staying for every Sunday. Some of them might be 15 minutes long. They might be 40. It kind of just depends on the week. And it's just going to be kind of like this, like a brain dump, but just my own thoughts sitting there. And hopefully you can listen to it on Sundays as a way to, I don't know, like incorporate into routine and feel not as alone with like the scaries and everything. I'm gonna have a lot of them coming up over the next month, so there'll be some interesting brain dumps. We're also gonna try out some like remote shooting, which will be fun.
I mean, hopefully we'll have some cool opportunities with some events that are coming up, especially working in Talking Fast, Running Faster, maybe doing some more live events and hosting some live podcasts, interviewing some people.
I know there was a brief period there where we were just a run club and not a podcast as well. So now we're back to being a run club and a podcast.
It's always funny when someone shows up to the run club and then they're running alongside me, and because most people are going to know you, but they're just like, so who are you? And spend a kilometer explaining it.
No, it's been a lot of people just discovering the run club, but we also have the run club continuing. That's not changing. That's going to continue. But give yourself a little grace if you're going through a period of change right now, because I think there's something there we kind of all have been. But thank you for listening to yet another episode of Talking Fast. We're so happy to be back. You can listen every single Wednesday and now on Sundays too. And we'll see you next time.